Welcome everyone. Doing the reading stream tonight. I normally do it Tuesdays and Thursdays, but as I was out last night and unsure of when I'd be getting home, I chose to basically just push it to today so that way I can still relatively maintain the schedule so I'm not basically pushing it back in terms of when the book is going to be done by. So, but it is what it is. Life happens sometimes. I'll be reading chapters 2 through 4 tonight, and I welcome everyone. And, well, I'm tired, Masa Soprano, so I can be kind of cranky when I'm tired, and I think I might be coming down with whatever my sister had. So that's always fun. Anyway, but welcome everyone. Trey, Gravy D, Masa Sopranos, Gigawatts. I'm just trying to wrap my head around this comment that the audiobook version, the narrator pronounces Spartan 117 as 117, and Mjolnir as Mjolnir. Like, no one bothered to correct the narrator at all. Alright. So welcome everyone. Hope you all enjoy chapters 2 through 4. So yeah, so as I stated, like in the you follow me on X, that Dr. Halsey and Lieutenant Keyes are on a mission of sorts, basically. And according to Dr. Halsey, it's to observe one child. One child. So let's see what happens, shall we? Let's begin chapter 2. And welcome everyone. Thank you for the compliments. Alright. The orange sun cast a fiery glow on the playground of Elysium City Primary Education Facility number 119. Dr. Halsey and Lieutenant Keyes stood in the semi-shade of a canvas awning and watched children as they screamed and chased one another and climbed on steel lattices and skimmed grab balls across the repulsor courts. Lieutenant Keyes looked extremely uncomfortable in civilian clothing. He wore a loose gray suit, a white shirt, and no tie. Dr. Halsey found his sudden awkwardness charming. Yeah, welcome everyone. When he had complained the clothes were too loose and sloppy, she had almost laughed. He was pure military to the core. Even out of uniform, the lieutenant stood rigid, as if he were a perpetual attention. "It's nice here," she said. "This colony doesn't know how good they've got it. Rural lifestyle, no pollution, no crowding, climate-controlled weather." The lieutenant grunted in acknowledgement as he tried to smooth the wrinkles out of his silk jackets. "Relax," she said. "We're supposed to be parents inspecting the school for our little girl." She slipped her arm through his, and although she would have thought such a feat impossible, the lieutenant stood even straighter. She sighed and pulled away from him, opened her purse, and retrieved a palm-sized pad. She adjusted the brim of her wide straw hat to shade the pad from the noon glare. With the tap of her finger, she accessed and scanned the file she had assembled of their subject. Number 117 had all the genetic markers she had flagged in her original study. He was as close to a perfect subject for our purposes as science could determine. But Dr. Halsey knew it would take more than theoretical perfection to make this project work. People were more than the sum of their genes. There were environmental factors, mutations, learned ethics, and 100 other factors that could make this candidate unacceptable. Again, welcome everyone. Oh, thank you, Carl. So, yes, I had to take a little break around Christmas time, but I'm back to normal schedule. Relatively. The picture in the file showed a typical 6-year-old male. He had tousled brown hair and a sly grin that revealed a gap between his front teeth. A few freckles were scattered across his cheeks. Good, she could match the patterns to confirm his identity. Our subject. As she angled the pad toward the lieutenant so he could see the boy, Dr. Halsey noticed that the picture was 4 months old. Didn't Oni realize how fast these children changed? Sloppy. She made a note to request updated pictures on a regular basis until Phase 3 started. "Is that him?" the lieutenant whispered. Dr. Halsey looked up. The lieutenant nodded to a grassy hill at the end of the playground. The crest of that hill was bare dirt, scuffed clean of all vegetation. A dozen boys pushed and shoved one another, grabbed, tackled, rolled down the slope, and then got up, ran back, and started the process over. I know you what. "King of the hill," Dr. Halsey remarked. One boy stood on the crest. He blocked, pushed, and strong-armed all the other children. Dr. Halsey pointed her data pad at him and recorded this incident for later study. She zoomed in on the subject to get a better look. This boy smiled and showed the same small gap between his front teeth. A split-second freeze frame, and she matched his freckles to the picture on file. That's our boy. He was taller than the other children by a full head, and if his performance in the game was any indicator, stronger as well. Another boy grabbed him from behind in a headlock. Number 117 peeled the boy off, and with a laugh, tossed him down the hillside like a toy. Dr. Halsey had expected a specimen of perfect physical proportions and stunning intellect. True, the subject was strong and fast, but he was also dirty and rude. Then again, unrealistic and subjective perceptions had to be confronted in these field studies. What did she really expect? He was a 6-year-old boy, full of life and unchecked emotion and as predictable as the wind. 3 boys ganged up on him. 2 grabbed his legs and 1 threw his arms around his chest. They all tumbled down the hill. Number 117 kicked and punched and bit his attackers until they let go and ran away to a safe distance. He rose and tore back up the hill, bumping another boy and shouting that he was king. He seems, the lieutenant started, very animated. Yes, Dr. Halsey said, we may be able to use this one. She glanced up and down the playground. The only adult was helping a girl get to her feet after falling down and scraping her elbow. She marched her towards the nurse's office. Stay here and watch me, Lieutenant, she said, and passed him the data pad. I'm going to have a closer look. The lieutenant started to say something, but Dr. Halsey walked away, then half jogged across the painted lines of hopscotch squares on the playground. A breeze caught her sundress, and she had to clutch the hem with one hand, grabbing the brim of her straw hat with the other. She slowed to a trot and halted 4 meters from the base of the hill. The children stopped and turned. You're in trouble, one boy said, and pushed number 117. He shoved the boy back and then looked Dr. Halsey squarely in the eyes. The other children looked away. Some wore embarrassed smirks, and a few slowly backed off. Her subject, however, stood there defiantly. He was either confident she wasn't going to punish him, or he simply wasn't afraid. She saw that he had a bruise on his cheek, the knees of his pants were torn, and his lip was cracked. Dr. Halsey took 3 steps closer. Several of the children took 3 involuntary steps backward. Can I speak with you, please? She asked, and continued to stare at her subjects. He finally broke eye contact, shrugged, and then lumbered down the hill. The other children giggled and made tisking sounds. One tossed a pebble at him. Number 117 ignored them. Dr. Halsey led him to the edge of the nearby sandpit and stopped. What's your name? She asked. I'm John, he said. The boy held out his hand. Dr. Halsey didn't expect physical contact. The subject's father must have taught him the ritual, where the boy was highly imitative. She shook his hand and was surprised by the strength in his minuscule grip. It's very nice to meet you, she knelt, so she was at his level. I wanted to ask you what you were doing. Winning, he said. Dr. Halsey smiled. He was unafraid of her, and she doubted that he'd have any trouble pushing her off the hill either. You like games, she said. So do I. He sighed. Yeah, but they made me play chess last week. That got boring. It's too easy to win. He took a quick breath. Or, can we play grab ball? They don't let me play grab ball anymore, but maybe if you tell them it's okay. I have a different game I want you to try, she told him. Look. She reached into her purse and brought out a metal disc. She turned it over and it gleamed in the sun. People used coins like this for currency a long time ago, when Earth was the only planet we lived on. His eyes fixed on the object. He reached for it. Dr. Halsey moved it away, continuing to flip it between her thumb and index finger. Each side is different. Do you see? One has the face of a man with long hair. The other side has a bird, called an eagle, and it's holding arrows, John said. Yes, good. His eyesight must be exceptional to see such detail so far away. We'll use this coin in our game. If you win, you can keep it. Sorry, my voice broke there. John tore his gaze from the coin and looked at her again, squinted, then said, Okay, I always win, though. That's why you won't let me play grab ball. That's why they won't let me play grab ball anymore. I'm sure you do. What's the game? It's very simple. I toss the coin like this. She flicked her wrist, snapped her thumb, and the coin arced, spinning into the air, and landed in the sand. Next time, though, before it lands, I want you to tell me if it will fall with the face of the man showing, or with the eagle holding the arrows. I got it, John tensed, bent his knees, and then his eyes seemed to lose their focus on her and the coin. Dr. Halsey picked up the quarter. Ready? John gave a slight nod. She tossed it, making sure there was plenty of spin. John's eyes watched it with that strange, distant gaze. He tracked it as it went up and then down toward the ground. His hand snapped out and snatched the quarter out of the air. He held up his closed hand. Eagle, he shouted. She tentatively reached for his hand and peeled open the tiny fist. The quarter lay in his palm, the eagle shining in the orange sun. Was it possible that he saw which side was up when he grabbed it, or more improbably, could have picked which side he wanted? She hoped the lieutenant had recorded that. She should have told him to keep the data pad trained on her. John retracted his hand. I get to keep it, right? That's what you said. Yes, you can keep it, John. She smiled at him, then stopped. She shouldn't have used his name. That was a bad sign. She couldn't afford the luxury of liking her test subjects. She mentally stepped away from her feelings. She had to maintain a professional distance. She had to, because in a few months, number 117 might not be alive. Can we play again? Dr. Halsey stood and took a step back. That was the only one I had, I'm afraid. I have to leave now, she told him. Go back and play with your friends. Thanks, he ran back, shouting to the other boys. Look! Dr. Halsey strode to the lieutenant. The sun reflecting off the asphalt felt too hot, and she suddenly didn't want to be outside. She wanted to be back in the ship, where it was cool and dark. She wanted to get off this planet. She stepped under the canvas awning and said to the lieutenant, Tell me you recorded that. He handed her the data pad and looked puzzled. Yes, what was it all about? Dr. Halsey checked the recording and then sent a copy ahead to Torin on the Han for safekeeping. We screen these subjects for certain genetic markers, she said. Strength, agility, even predispositions for aggression and intellect. But we couldn't remote test for everything. We don't test for luck. Luck? Lieutenant Keyes asked. Do you believe in luck, Doctor? Of course not, she said with a dismissive wave of her hand. But we have 150 test subjects to consider, and facilities and funding for only half that number. It's a simple mathematical elimination, Lieutenant. That child was one of the lucky ones. Either that or he's extraordinarily fast. Either way, he's in. I don't understand, Lieutenant Keyes said, and he started fiddling with the pipe he carried in his pocket. I hope that continues, Lieutenant, Dr. Halsey replied quietly. For your sake, I hope you never understand what we're doing. She looked one last time at number 117, at John. He was having so much fun, running and laughing. For a moment, she envied the boy's innocence. Hers was long dead. Life or death, lucky or not, she was condemning this boy to a great deal of pain and suffering. But it had to be done. Thus ends Chapter 2. Chapter 3. Dr. Halsey stood on a platform in the center of the amphitheater. Concentric rings of slate-gray risers surrounded her, empty for now. Overhead spotlights focused and reflected off her white lab coat, but she still was cold. She should feel safe here. Reach was one of the UNSC's largest industrial bases, ringed with high-orbit gun batteries, space docks, and a fleet of heavily armed capital ships. On the planet's surface were Marine and Navy Special Warfare training grounds, OCS schools, and between her, underground facilities on the surface were 300 meters of hardened steel and concrete. The room where she now stood could withstand a direct hit from an 80-megaton nuke. So why did she feel so vulnerable? Dr. Halsey knew what she had to do. Her duty. It was for the greater good. All humanity would be served, even if a tiny handful of them had to suffer for it. Still, when she turned inward and faced her complicity in this, she was revolted by what she saw. Yes, Chick, what? She wished she still had Lieutenant Keyes. He had proven himself a capable assistant during the last month, but he had begun to understand the nature of the project, at least seeing the edges of the truth. Dr. Halsey had him reassigned to the Magellan, with a commission to full lieutenant for his troubles. Are you ready, Doctor? A disembodied woman's voice asked. Almost, Deja, Dr. Halsey sighed. Please summon Chief Petty Officer Mendez. I'd like you both present when I address them. Deja's hologram flicked on next to Dr. Halsey. The AI had been specifically created for Dr. Halsey's Spartan project. She took the appearance of a Greek goddess, barefoot, wrapped in a toga, motes of light dancing about her luminous white hair. She held a clay tablet in her left hand. Binary cuneiform markings scrolled across the tablet. Dr. Halsey couldn't help but marvel at the AI's chosen form. Each AI self-assigned a holographic appearance, and each was unique. One of the doors at the top of the amphitheater opened, and Chief Petty Officer Mendez strode down the stairs. He wore a black dress uniform, his chest awash with silver and gold stars and a rainbow of campaign ribbons. His close-shorn hair was a touch of gray at the temples. He was neither tall nor muscular. He looked so ordinary for a man who had seen so much combat, except for his stride. The man moved with a slow grace as if he were walking in half-gravity. He paused before Dr. Halsey, awaiting further instructions. Up here, please, she told him, gesturing to the stairs on her right. Mendez mounted the steps of the platform and then stood at ease next to her. You have read my psychological evaluations? Stasia asked Dr. Halsey. Yes, they were quite thorough, she said. Thank you. And I'm foregoing your recommendations, Stasia. I'm going to tell them the truth. Mendez gave a nearly inaudible grunt of approval, one of the most verbose acknowledgments Dr. Halsey had heard from him. As a hand-to-hand combat and physical training DI, or drill instructor, I should say, Mendez was the best in the Navy. As a conversationalist, however, he left a great deal to be desired. The truth has risks, Stasia cautioned. So do lies, Dr. Halsey replied. Any story fabricated to motivate the children, claiming their parents were taken and killed by pirates or by a plague that devastated their planets, if they learned the truth later, they would turn against us. Apparently, they couldn't figure that out in the Halo show. It is a legitimate concern, conceded Deja, and then she consulted her tablet. May I suggest selective neural paralysis? It produces a targeted amnesia. A memory loss that may leak into other parts of the brain? No. Dr. Halsey said this will be dangerous enough for them, even with intact minds. Dr. Halsey clicked on her microphone. Bring them in now. Aye, aye, a voice replied from the speakers in the ceiling. They'll adapt, Dr. Halsey told Deja, or they won't, and they will be untrainable and unsuitable for the project. Either way, I just want to get this over with. 4 sets of double doors to the top tier of the amphitheater swung open. 75 children marched in, each accompanied by a handler, a naval drill instructor in camouflage patterned fatigues. The children had circles of fatigue around their eyes. They had all been collected, rushed here through slipstream space, and only recently brought out of cryo sleep. The shock of their ordeal must be hitting them hard, Halsey realized. She stifled a pang of regret. When they had been seated in the risers, Dr. Halsey cleared her throat and spoke. As per Naval Code 45812, you are hereby conscripted into the UNSC Special Project, codenamed Spartan 2. She paused. The words stuck in her windpipe. How could they possibly understand this? She barely understood the justification and ethics behind this program. They looked so confused. A few tried to stand and leave, but their handlers placed firm hands on their shoulders and pushed them back down. 6 years old, this was too much for them to digest. But she had to make them understand, explain it in simple terms that they could grasp. Dr. Halsey took a tentative step forward. You have been called upon to serve, she explained. You will be trained, and you will become the best we can make of you. You will be the protectors of Earth and all her colonies. A handful of the children sat up straighter, no longer entirely frightened, but now interested. Dr. Halsey spotted John, subject number 117, the first boy she had confirmed as a viable candidate. He wrinkled his forehead, confused, but he listened with rapt attention. This will be hard to understand, but you cannot return to your parents. The children stirred. Their handlers kept a firm grip on their shoulders. This place will become your home, Dr. Halsey said in as soothing a voice as she could muster. Your fellow trainees will be your family now. The training will be difficult. There will be a great deal of hardship on the road ahead, but I know you will all make it. Patriotic words, but they rang hollow in her ears. She'd wanted to tell them the truth, but how could she? Not all of them would make it. Acceptable losses, the Office of Naval Intelligence representative had assured her. None of it was acceptable. Rest now, Dr. Halsey said to them. We begin tomorrow. She turned to Mendez. Have the children, the trainees, escorted to their barracks. Feed them and put them to bed. Yes, ma'am, Mendez said. Fall out, he shouted. The children rose, at the urging of their handlers. John 117 stood, but he kept his gaze on Dr. Halsey and remained stoic. Many of the subjects seemed stunned. A few had trembling lips, but none of them cried. These were indeed the right children for the project. Dr. Halsey only hoped that she had half their courage when the time came. Keep them busy tomorrow, she told Mendez and Deja. Keep them from thinking about what we've just done to them. And that ends Chapter 3, and I'm going to take a quick water break before I begin Chapter 4. Some of them are short. Anyway, Chapter 4. Wake up, trainee. John rolled over in his cot and went back to sleep. He was dimly aware that this wasn't his room and that there were other people here. A shock jolted him. From his bare feet to the base of his spine, he yelled in surprise and fell off the cot. He shook off the disorientation from being nearly asleep and got up. I said up, Boots. You know which way up is. A man in a camouflage uniform stood over John. His hair was shorn and gray at his temples. His dark eyes didn't look human, too big and black, and they didn't blink. He held a silver baton in one hand. He flicked it toward John and it sparked. Welcome, everyone. John backed away. He wasn't afraid of anything. Only little kids were afraid, but his body instinctively moved as far away from the instrument as possible. Dozens of other men roused the rest of the children. 74 boys and girls screamed and jumped out of their cots. I am Chief Petty Officer Mendez, the uniformed man next to John shouted. The rest of these men are your instructors. You will do exactly as we tell you at all times. Mendez pointed to the far end of the cinder block barracks. Showers are aft. You will all wash and then return here to dress. He opened a trunk at the foot of John's cot and pulled out a matching set of gray sweats. John leaned closer and saw his name stenciled on the chest. John 117. Good evening, everyone. No slacking. On the double, Mendez tapped John between the shoulder blades with a baton. Lightning surged across John's chest. He sprawled on the cot and gasped for breath. I mean it. Go, go, go. John moved. He couldn't inhale, but he ran anyway, clutching his chest. He managed to ragged his breath by the time he got to the showers. The other kids looked scared and disoriented. They all stripped off their nightshirts and stepped into the conveyor, washed themselves in lukewarm soapy water, then rinsed in an icy cold spray. He ran back to his bunk, got into underwear, thick socks, pulled on the sweats, and a pair of combat boots that fit his feet perfectly. Outside, trainees, Mendez announced, "Triple time, march!" John and the others stampeded out of the barracks onto a strip of grass. The sun hadn't risen yet, and the edge of the sky was indigo. The grass was wet with dew. There were dozens of rows of barracks, but no one else was up and outside. A pair of jets roared overhead and arced up into the sky. Far away, John heard a metallic crackle. Chief Petty Officer Mendez barked. You will make 5 equal-length rows, 15 trainees in each. He waited a few seconds as they milled about. Straighten those rows. You know how to count to 15, trainee. Take 3 steps back. John stepped into the second row. As he breathed the cold air, he began to wake up. He started to remember. They had taken him in the middle of the night. They injected him with something, and he slept for a long time. Then the woman who had given him the coin told him he couldn't go back, that he wouldn't see his father or mother. Jumping jacks, Mendez shouted. Count off to 100. Ready? Go. The officer started the exercise, and John followed his lead. One boy refused for a split second. An instructor was on him instantly. The baton whipped into the boy's stomach. The kid doubled over. Get with the program, Boots, the trainer snarled. The boy uncurled and started jumping. John had never done so many jumping jacks in his life. His arms and stomach and legs burned. Sweat trickled down his back. 98, 99, 100, Mendez paused. He drew in a deep breath. Sit-ups! He dropped onto the grass. Count off to 100. No slacking. John threw himself on the ground. The first crewman who quits, Mendez said, gets to run around the compound twice and then comes back here and does 200 sit-ups. Ready? Count off. 1, 2, 3. Deep squats followed, then knee bends. John threw up, but that didn't buy him any respite. A trainer descended on him after a few seconds. John rolled back over and continued. Leg lifts, Mendez continued, like he was a machine, as if they were all machines. John couldn't go on, but he knew he'd get the baton again if he stopped. He tried. He had to move. His legs trembled and only sluggishly responded. Rest, Mendez finally called. Trainers, get the water. Trainers wheeled out carts laden with water bottles. John grabbed one and gulped down the liquid. It was warm and slightly salty. He didn't care. It was the best water he ever had. He flopped on his back in the grass and panted. No, Gravy. The sun was up now. It was warm. He rolled to his knees and let the sweat drip off him like a heavy rain. He slowly got up and glanced at the other children. They crouched on the ground, holding their sides, and no one talked. Their clothes were soaked through with perspiration. John didn't recognize anyone from his school here, so he was alone with strangers. He wondered where his mother was and what... A good start, trainees, Mendez told them. Now we run. On your feet. The trainers brandished their batons and herded the trainees along. They jogged down a gravel path through the compound, past more cinder block barracks. The run seemed to go on forever. They ran alongside a river, over a bridge, then by the edge of a runway where jets took off straight into the air. Once past the runway, Mendez led them on a zigzagging path of stone. John wanted to think about what had happened, how he got here, and what was going to happen next, but he couldn't think straight. All he could feel was the blood pounding through him, the ache in his muscles, and hunger. They ran into a courtyard of smooth flagstones. A pole in the center flew the colors of the UNSC, a blue field with stars and earth in the corner. At the far end of the yard was a building with a scout's dome and white columns and dozens of wide steps leading to the entrance. The words Naval Officers Academy were chiseled into the arch over the entrance. A woman stood on the top step and beckoned to them. She wore a white sheet wrapped around her body. She looked old to John, yet young at the same time. Then he saw the motes of light orbiting her head, and he knew she was an AI. He had seen them on vids. She wasn't solid, but she was still real. "Excellent work, Chief Petty Officer Mendez," she said in a resonant, silk-smooth voice. She turned to the children. "Welcome. My name is Deja, and I will be your teacher. Please come in. Class is about to start." John groaned out loud. Several of the others grumbled too. She turned and started to walk inside. "Of course," she said, "if you prefer to skip your lessons, you may continue the morning calisthenics." John double-timed it up the steps. It was cool inside. A tray with crackers and a carton of milk had been laid out for each of them. John nibbled on the dry, stale food and then gulped down his milk. John was so tired he wanted to lay his head down on the desk and take a nap, until Deja started to tell them about a battle and how 300 soldiers fought against thousands of Persian infantry. Can you guess what she's talking about? A holographic countryside appeared in the classroom. The children walked around the miniature mountains and hills and let the edge of illusionary sea lap at their boots. Toy-sized soldiers marched toward what Deja explained was Thermopylae, a narrow strip of land between steep mountains and the sea. Thousands of soldiers marched toward the 300 who guarded the pass. The soldiers fought. Spears and shields splintered. Swords flashed and spilled blood. John couldn't take his eyes off the spectacle. Close, but no cigar, Golden Fox. Deja explained that 300 were Spartans, and they were the best soldiers who had ever lived. They had been trained to fight since they were children. No one could beat them. John watched, fascinated, as the holographic Spartan slaughtered the Persian spearmen. He had eaten his crackers, but he was still hungry, so he took the girls next to him when she wasn't looking and munched them down as the battle raged on. His stomach still growled and grumbled. When was lunch? Or was it dinner time already? The Persians broke and ran, and the Spartans stood victorious on the field. The children cheered. They wanted to see it again. "That's all for today," Deja said. "We'll continue tomorrow, and I'll show you some wolves. Now it's time for you to go to the playground." "Playground," John said. That was perfect. He could finally just sit on a swing, relax, and think for a moment. He ran out of the room, as did the other trainees. Chief Petty Officer Mendez and the trainers waited for them outside the classroom. "Time for the playground," Mendez said, and waved the children closer. "It's a short run. Fall in." The short run turned into 2 miles, and the playground was like nothing John had ever seen. It was a forest of 20-meter-tall wooden poles. Rope cargo nets and bridges stretched between the poles. They swayed, crossed, and crisscrossed one another, a maze suspended in the air. There were slide poles and knotted climbing ropes. There were swings and suspended platforms. There were ropes looped through pulleys and tied to baskets that looked sturdy enough to hoist a person. "Trainees," Mendez said, "form 3 lines." The instructors moved in to herd them, but John and the others made 3 rows without comment or fuss. "The first person in every row will be team number 1. Mendez said. "The second person in each row will be team number 2, and so on. If you do not understand this, speak up now." No one spoke. John looked to his right. A boy with sandy hair, green eyes, and darkly tanned skin gave him a weary smile. Stenciled on his sweat top was Samuel, 034. In the row beyond, Samuel was a girl. She was taller than John and skinny with a long mane of hair dyed blue. Kelly, 087. She didn't look too happy to see him. "Today's game," Mendez explained, "is called Ring the Bell." He pointed to the tallest pole on the playground. It stood an additional 10 meters above the others, and had a steel slide pole next to it. Hung at the very top of that pole was a brass bell. "There are many ways to get to the bell," he told them. "I leave it up to each team to find their own way. When every member of your team has rung the bell, you are to get groundside double time and run back here across the finish line." Mendez took his baton and scratched a straight line in the sand. John raised his hand. Mendes glared at him for a moment with those black, unblinking eyes. A question, trainee? What do we win? Mendes cocked one eyebrow and appraised John. You win dinner, number 117. Tonight, dinner is roast turkey, gravy, and mashed potatoes, corn on the cob, brownies, and ice cream. A murmur of approval swept through the children. But, Mendes added, for there to be winners, there must be a loser. The last team to finish goes without food. The children fell silent and then looked at each other wearily. Make ready, Mendes said. I'm Sam, the boy whispered to John and the girl on their team. She said, I'm Kelly. John just looked at them and said nothing. The girl would slow them down. Too bad. He was hungry and he wasn't about to let them make him loose. Go, Mendes shouted. John ran through the pack of children, scrambled up a cargo net onto a platform. He raced across the bridge, jumped onto the next platform. Just in time. The bridge flipped and sent 5 others into the water below. He paused at the rope tied to the larger basket. He ran up through a pulley and then back down. He didn't think he was strong enough to pull himself up in it. Instead, he tackled a knotted climbing rope and scrunched his body up. The rope swung wildly around the center pole. John looked down and almost lost his grip. It looked twice as far down as it looked from the ground. He saw all the others, some climbing, others floundering in the water, getting up and starting over. No one was as close to the bell as he was. He swallowed his fear and kept climbing up. He thought of the ice cream and chocolate brownies and how he was going to win. John got to the top, grabbed the bell, and rang it 3 times. He then clasped the steel pole and slid all the way down to the ground, falling to a pile of cushions. He got up and ran, smiling all the way to the chief petty officer. John crossed the finish line and gave a victory cry. I was first, he said, panting. Mendes nodded and made a check on his clipboard. John watched as the others made it up, rang the bell, then raced across the finish line. Kelly and Sam had trouble. They got stuck in the line to get to the bell, as everyone bunched up at the end. They finally rang the bell, slid down together, but they crossed the finish line last. They glared at John. He shrugged. Good work, trainees, Mendes said, and he beamed at them all. Let's get back to the barracks and chow down. The children, covered in mud and leaning on each other, cheered. All except Team 3, Mendes said, and looked at Sam, Kelly, and then John. But I won, John protested. I was first. Yes, you were first, Mendes explained, but your team came in last. He then addressed all the children. Remember this, you don't win unless your team wins. One person winning at the expense of the group means that you lose. John ran in a stupor all the way back to the barracks. It wasn't fair. He had won. How can you win and still lose? He watched as the others stuffed themselves with turkey, white meat dripping with gravy. They spooned down mountains of vanilla ice cream and left the mess hall with chocolate encrusting the corners of their mouths. John got a liter of water. He drank it, but it didn't have any taste. It did nothing to fill his hunger. He wanted to cry, but he was too tired. He collapsed in his bunk, thinking of ways to get even with Sam and Kelly for messing him up. But he couldn't think. Every muscle and bone ached. John fell asleep as soon as his head hit the flat pillow. The next day was the same, calisthenics and running all morning, then class until the afternoon. Today Deja taught them about wolves. The classroom became a holographic meadow, and the children watched 7 wolves hunt a moose. The pack worked together, striking wherever the giant beast wasn't facing. It was fascinating and horrifying to watch the wolves track down and then devour an animal many times their size. John avoided Sam and Kelly in the classroom. He stole a few extra crackers when no one was looking, but they didn't dull his hunger. After class, they ran back to the playground. Today it was different. There were fewer bridges and more complicated rope and pulley systems. The pole with the bell was now 20 meters taller than any of the others. Same teams as yesterday, Mendes announced. Sam and Kelly walked up to John. Sam shoved him. John's temper flared. He wanted to hit Sam in the face, but he was too tired. He'd need all his strength to get to the bell. You better help us, Sam hissed, or I'll push you off one of those platforms. And I'll jump on top of you, Kelly added. Okay, John whispered. Let's just try not to slow me down. John examined the course. It was like doing a maze on paper, only this one twisted and turned into and out of the page. Many bridges and rope ladders led to dead ends. He squinted, then found one possible route. He nudged Sam and Kelly, then pointed. Look, he said, that basket and rope on the far side. It goes straight to the top. It's a long pull, though. He flexed his biceps, uncertain if he could make it in his weakened state. We can do it, Sam said. John glanced at the other teams. They were searching the course as well. We'll have to make a quick run for it, he said. Make sure no one else gets there first. I'm fast, Kelly said. Real fast. Trainees, get ready, Mendes shouted. Okay, John said. You sprint ahead and hold it for us. Go. Kelly shot forward. John had never seen anyone move like her. She ran like the wolves he had seen today. Her feet seemed barely to touch the ground. She got to the basket. John and Sam were only halfway there. One boy beat them to the basket. Get out, he ordered Kelly. I'm going up. Sam and John ran up and pushed him back. Wait your turn, Sam said. John and Sam joined Kelly in the basket. Together they pulled on the rope and raised themselves up. There was a lot of rope. For every 3 meters they pulled, they only rose 1 meter. A breeze made the basket sway and bounce onto the pole. Faster, John urged. They pulled as one person, 6 hands working in unison, and accelerated into the sky. They didn't get there first. They were third. Each of them got to ring the bell, though. Kelly, Sam, and John. They slid down the pole. Kelly and Sam waited for John to land, and then together they ran across the finish line. Chief Petty Officer Mendes watched them. He didn't say anything, but John thought he saw a smile flicker across his face. Sam clapped John and Kelly on their backs. That was good work, Sam said. He looked thoughtful for a moment, then said, We can be friends. I mean, if you want, it'll be no big deal. Kelly shrugged and replied, Sure. Okay, John said. Friends. And thus ends Chapter 4. So these streams are going to go slightly faster than the Lord of the Rings ones because the book is smaller and the chapters are relatively shorter. So, yeah. Just hold on. I can't remember which blue she was. Hold on. Literally just read it. Hold on. Yeah, blue 2. So, blue 2. Well, I don't understand that either, Gigawatt. Books aside, there's character. Like, there's definitely character in Master Chief, in John 117. It's like, see, the thing is, stoicism is a character trait. And I don't know how many people can speak as a military vet, right? But sometimes we do come across as emotionless because we have to separate ourselves so we don't become overcome with emotion. Or we have to kind of detach. We have to have a certain level of stoicism so that way we can get the job done. Right? But just because he's stoic does not mean there's no emotion, there's no character, right? It's just one of those characteristics of someone who's been through military training who has to. Yeah, Batman is stoic, basically. But I'm just saying, like, you have to detach yourself. You can't afford to become too invested, too attached. As well as inhuman as that sounds, sometimes, because, you know, sometimes it's in certain tragic instances. Unfortunately, it's one thing you have to do because otherwise everything will fail. So, but it is what it is. Like I said, I've never understood that, and the one thing the Halo show had going for it, the one thing, and I say this very, very loosely, all right? I'm like, you know, it's like, don't take this as entirely as a positive, but the one thing it has over other shows like Rings of Power, the Fallout TV show, etc., is they came out before the show aired, before it was even filmed, and said, this is not canon. This is a different timeline. This is a different story. This is not the characters. This is not the story you know. It's the one positive I can give to that show. No. Character in the book does not behave like Master Cheeks in the show. Alright? One thing I absolutely hated about the show, amongst many, many things, and that was the absolute necessity of showing Master Chief's face. I should say Master Chief's, because that's not Master Chief. Alright? That's definitely not Master Chief. Oh, it definitely was damage control before it started. It definitely was damage control, because if they didn't say it, wow, would the backlash have been severe? I mean, it was severe enough, right? It was severe enough. But they at least had that buffer by saying it's not canon. So yeah. But anyway. Oh, I didn't read the article, Trey, but I saw one that I might cover on Sunday where it's basically the Supergirl movie, or that characterization of Supergirl is based on a Tom King book. Why anyone was happy that James Gunn took over, I'll never know. But he flat out came out and said that it's based on a Tom King book. Universally despised Tom King. Yeah, pretty much universally despised Tom King amongst DC fans. That's what he's basing the Supergirl movie on. Yeah, but DC saved. Anyway, but yeah, there it is, chat. Yeah, so basically these streams are going to be slightly shorter than the Lord of the Rings ones because of the fact that the book itself is smaller, chapters are a bit shorter, but still entertaining. Still very much entertaining. And I appreciate you all being here. Hope you enjoy listening to the replay if you weren't listening to it live. I appreciate all the views. I appreciate everyone, whether you're watching it live or you're listening to the replay later on. Appreciate it. I'm only reading the first book because I don't know what happened to the books after The Fall of Reach. I added them to my throne just before the stream started, so if anybody's willing at some point to purchase them for me, I appreciate it, because at one point I had the books, but I could only find The Fall of Reach and Contact Harvest, which is not part of the initial series that Fall of Reach begins. It's a little bit later. So it's one of those where it's like I wouldn't be able to continue these books because I do not have them. I'm just saying I do not have them. I don't know what happened to them. I have no idea if they accidentally got mixed in with books that were basically given away or so forth. So, but yes, I do have a throne. I added them to the throne. I'm not saying I expect anybody to purchase them, but it would be appreciated because I can't find my books. Yeah, I can't find them. So I found an Amazon link for all 4 books to add to my throne. So, yeah, so, like I said, I had them, The Flood, First Strike, Ghost of Onyx, but I could only find The Fall of Reach, and I literally just saw it. This. So these are the 2 I found. But not the others. Oh, get up there. Okay, great. I'm gonna do it after. Can't reach. Anyway, but thank you all. Again, no stream tomorrow. If I do anything in the afternoon, and that's a big if, I will probably play Arc Raiders offline. I'll share my screen in my Discord, so if you just want to hang out for a little bit, you can choose to do so. More the merrier. But if not, I will be doing a watch party in my Discord tomorrow evening. Trey, real fast, I just want to ask you a question real fast. Is Pin Down doing a stream tomorrow? Because if you are, I'll wait until after. I'll wait until after your stream is done, because the movie I'm going to be doing a watch party of is that found footage movie that Gravy recommended. I finished watching it today. the found footage, found basically, what's the subtitle to that? Anyway, from really recent movie, basically, really recent movie. I thought it was decent. I think y'all might enjoy it. So, all right, cool, Trey. Does it start at what time? What time does it start? So, like I said, I want to kind of wait until after the pin down stream is done. I figure I'm gonna be showing a movie that probably most people have not seen, and I want to wait until you're gonna 7 Eastern. All right. How long is the movie? Okay, the movie is not that long. All right, so if I can start it no later than 8:30 p.m., that would work. Because the movie itself is only about an hour and a half long. It's not that long at all. It's really not that long at all. So, yeah. But anyway, chat. Again, thank you all for hanging out with me. If I don't see you for the watch party tomorrow, then I will be seeing you on my YouTube channel this coming Sunday evening for Talk Nerdy to Us at 8:30 p.m. Why am I saying 11:30? 8:30 p.m. Eastern, my time. Stream I do with my nerdy home. It'll be on my channel this coming Sunday, and I hope you all join in as we talk pop culture and most likely cringe, because some cringe stuff did happen this past week. So take care, everyone. Stay safe, have a good rest of your day or evening wherever you are in the world, and I will see you all this weekend for either the watch party or Talk Nerdy to Us. Peace.